Hi everyone. So today is going to be our last session in strategic financial management. So I will be talking to you about the remaining parts that we've kind of missed out and completing the module today. So last week we were talking about macro environment, where we spoke about the pestile analysis, and we spoke about even high forces. So today I will be moving towards internal environment so that y'all can understand, the factors that would affect the internal environment of a company. So internal environment factors are basically the factors which would that would occur within a company itself. So basically, these are like stakeholders who are inside the company itself, and the factors which will affect based on those people and how changes happen. So like management changes, the employee morale, the cultural changes, financial changes, all of these will come under internal environment, as you can see. So yeah, so moving on, so to talk about internal environment, I thought it is very important for us to just do a SWOT analysis to kind of figure out the strengths and weaknesses, and then the opportunities of threats of the business, because it is basically a simple tool which summarizes and helps a business kind of understand the situation of the business. So basically in this SWOT analysis, what we do is we look at the strength. What are the positive factors which is within the internal environment? It could be positive attributes, it could be tangible things, it could be intangible things. All of these will be strength. And weaknesses would basically be like the negative factors, like anything which would give a competitive disadvantage, or it would be something which gives that would detract the value of which offers, then obviously we will put it as a weakness. Now, opportunities is something a little external, but it's a positive factor where like the organization could try and make use of that opportunities. Like, if these are, identified so that the company is able to kind of, improve themselves and try and see if they can kind of manage the opportunities. Now, when we look at the threats, these are kind of external and it's a negative factor where all these contingencies. So when we know the threats, the organization will have to have some sort of contingency plan in order to make sure that nothing goes wrong, right? So as you can see, this is how the SWOT analysis is done. You get the strengths and weaknesses, which is basically inside the company, and opportunities and threats which would come from outside the company. So the SWOT would have internal factor, external factors. So opportunities, threats, as you can see, comes from the external factor, which could be micro environment or macro environment. So now, what is the aim of SWOT analysis? It would help the organization to figure out, okay, right, whether they have a competitive advantage, or what are the perspectives of the organization have for profitability or even sales, and for the organization to develop a particular contingency plan if there are certain kind of threats that come in. And like the organization will be able to plan better when they they kind of they are able to kind of figure out what the situation is in the organization. So it will also, so to get maximum out of this SWOT analysis, what can we do to be realistic about the strengths and weaknesses of the organization? The analysis should distinguish between where the organization is today and what should be in the future, and to be specific and always analyze in relation to the market competition, or keep your SWOT short and simple. These are things that would be there. Thereafter, now we are moving towards the specific section called significance of stakeholder analysis or stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders? They're basically a group of people or bodies who have an interest in the organization or who are able to influence the organization, and also people who can be influenced by the organization. So basically, stakeholder might be people who have low interest or low power. It could be people who have high interest, high power. It could be a mix of stakeholders. So it is very important for an organization to figure out the organization does know where the stakeholders are, but they need to kind of map and examine where each stakeholder kind of states, because each stakeholder is different from each other. So there is a mapping mechanism which can be used in order to figure out who are more important and what will affect the organization. So for that, we will be looking into something called stakeholder mapping, which examines the power of the stakeholder and relative ability to use that power and their relative interest. And they are kind of grouped in a graph called Mandela matrix based on their level of interest against the power. So we can look at the low interest, low power stakeholders, the high interest, high powered stakeholders, or the mix as such. Let me show you how it is. So influence and the power in this side, and the interest of the power this side. So people who have low power, low interest, like least important, people are called minimal effort. So we don't have to put too much of effort to satisfy them. And people who high interest and high power, obviously they are key players and we need to engage closely with them. So the organization have to take more effort in order to satisfy these stakeholders. And there could be high power and low interest people. So we need to make sure that we meet their needs, because we have to keep them satisfied. Also with them, there could be low power people with high interest. So like environmentalists and people like that. So we have to show consideration and keep them informed so that they don't become much of an issue for us. So for the organization, so Mandela matrix is kind of a useful in order to determine in like the potential influence of a stakeholder, and it looks at like two dimensions. As you can see, it's the influence power of the stakeholder and also the interest of the stakeholder. Now we know about stakeholder, and we know about the macro environment, the micro environment, then who are involved in the stakeholders of the organization. Now we are kind of going to look into something called culture. Now, what is culture? Culture of an organization is like a unique configuration of the norms, values, beliefs, and way that they behave in a group or individual combined. So this is culture is basically something that differs from organization to organization, country to country. This is because it is like a mix of norms, values, beliefs, and things of that sort. Like now I'm talking about norms, values, beliefs. First we need to see what are these norms, values, and beliefs. So if we look at the components of the culture, you can see first is the value. Value is kind of like a belief, what is best for like the organization. Obviously the management will have the belief, okay, if we do this, this is how it will affect. But so based on that value, the organization will take decision and the culture will be set upon. And when we look at the norms, they are like unwritten rules for behavior, like rules of the game, and provide informal guidelines and all things of that sort. And norms kind of tell people what they're supposed to be doing, saying, believe, and even wearing. So those are kind of like norms. So when it could the organization could have, okay, right, dress down day where you like according to that particular norm, that particular day, the organization, everyone in the organization will be wearing like a some kind of dress which would might not be professional. So it could be kind of like the culture of that particular organization. Now when we look at artifacts, these are visible and tangible aspects of an organization that people can see, hear, or feel, and it could contribute to their organization and the organization's kind of culture. So like it would depend on the working environment of the organization and the tone and language. All these will be kind of like the artifacts. So now we will move on towards the management style. It would be different, based on the culture, the management style of the organization might differ. It could be autocratic, it could be transformational, it could be transactional. So it could differ as well. Now, because we are talking about organization culture, wanted to give you like a classification of organization culture. So there is a classification by Handy, where he classified 4 categories. One is called the power culture, where a central power source would exercise the control, and there are few rules and procedures, and it is basically it would be power oriented and political. Then the next one is called the role culture, in which like basically what happens is there are particular procedures, rules, and regulations, and everyone is trying to fit into that particular role and try to see and ensure that they follow the rules and regulations. The next would be the task culture. So it is based on each of the employees will be given a particular task to be achieved. So it would be based on like expert power and position and like the personal power. So people would be trying to achieve the task. So the person culture is where the individual is the central point, and the organization exists only and serves and exists to individuals in it only. So and now we are kind of trying to see and look at how the HR professional role as a change management. So there is the 10 profound changes which will alter the course of any business, which could be global, economic, financial, technological, political, structural, social conflicts. All these kind of different situations, obviously macro, micro, whatever it is, could affect an organization, and it could alter certain type of changes in the business as well. And so the HR professionals and the organization management need to be aware of these particular environmental issues as well. Now I'm going to move towards the key drivers for changes in the business. Basically, if we look at the key drivers, like there are set of drivers which would force a shape of HR agenda. So like a constant call to go beyond like the transactional services, to adopt a more strategic approach and great like a business alignment. And it could be winning the competition to kind of attract and develop and retain the talent. It could be because of the structure, age, and culture, and even like the composition of the workforce, which would change by a growing and aging global population. And it could even be like the needs and aspiration of the workforce, and which is shaped by like a divergent need of the global middle class as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of things. So if we look at the reasons for change, if we look at a particular, so if there is a change in an organization, we have to look at the case for the change, right? It is important to kind of identify the drivers for the change. So drivers are like the forces which will support a change, and the drivers exchange of factors that are discouraging change, then the change should take place, right? So this will kind of help to identify the balance of forces for and against change. So we will look at the drivers of change and try and see what are the forces for the change and against it, and try to manage it. So when there is some kind of cultural change, there is culture involved, obviously there will be some sort of kind of mix up where the culture has to be managed in a particular way, where all the employees are involved as well. So now I need to also speak about co-competency development model. So basically, this is a model where we've been talking about all sorts of objectives and different types of things, right? So this particular model is where a situation is kind of analyzed, where an organization's competence gaps are kind of analyzed, and we look at the scenarios where, like, how the customers are, how the suppliers are, you look at a period of time, and thereafter we look at the objectives and the competencies of the particular organization, and then a strategy is implemented so that the co-competency of the organization can be properly managed. So this is the co-competencies model, and I will go through a little bit on the value chain. So basically, what we look into in a value chain. So value chain is also another model that you are supposed to just know a little bit about. So basically, value chain is where the organization is, basically the internal activities, how it works, and how the supporting works in an organization. So as you can see, there are support. So there are, according to this value chain model, there are 5 main main activities. One is the inbound logistics, which where the raw materials are handled, and this includes the warehouse as well. Then it is the operations, which could be machining, assembling, and testing. Then it would be the outbound logistics, where distribution of the finished product happens. And then obviously, when after storing or warehousing your product, what we need to do is we need to market and sell the product. So obviously, advertising, promoting, all that will go under market and sales, and service. Like if it's kind of like an let's say something like a TV or something of that sort, then obviously the organization need to ensure that installation, repair, and things are also handled as well. So this is a basic understanding of how a manufacturing organization works. So this is the value chain. It's a basic generalized thing. So, and so there could be, when an operations work this way, there are support activities which will help, like the firm structure, which would have the management, which should have, obviously you need accounting, finance, and there should be some kind of strategic planning, and there should be human resource management to recruit, train, develop, obviously part of the organization, but it is not basically the operations, the main operations of producing the product. So, and it could be like technology development, where the R&D happens and the process improvements are done, so that the organization, through this part, it would kind of help to improve the process of the operation, right? And then the procurement of like purchasing and the machine supplies and raw material, those decisions, they are basically not the exact process of producing the goods. However, these are support activities which will help an organization. So as you can see, all these working together, big a profit margin is being achieved. So as you can see, these are the primary activities and these are the secondary activities, and that's how the value chain kind of works. So what we need to understand, that the competitive advantage will kind of arise through providing buyer value comparable to competitor, but performing value chain activities more efficiently, like a cost-based kind of advantage, and or it could be performing value chain activities in kind of like a unique way to kind of create kind of a buyer value than the competitors, and to in order to make sure that there is a premium price, which involves differentiation based advantage. So as you can see, these are the things that will kind of help an organization get a competitive advantage, get this extra margin or the profit. Obviously, all the organization are trying to achieve the organization the profit, right? So in the end, so that is what would happen, what would be tried upon using the value chain analysis. So basic understanding of how the value chain works, like that there are particular primary activities and support activities, and using all these in a specific way kind of helps the organization in order to ensure that a specific profit is being achieved, and obviously that the organization is able to kind of market their product. So value chain analysis is kind of like an internal thing, like the managing core competency, using that core competency development that I mentioned. So with that, actually, we've completed everything in this particular module, and we've kind of tried to, so basically we've been covering all the sections in the module within the past 9 weeks, now 10 weeks with this week. So, but the module content is quite large. However, the main purpose was to ensure that we are able to cover everything that was in the module specification, where the learning outcomes are kind of achieved. So all the sections would be basically, so what I tried my best to ensure that you get a certain understanding of the of these theories and what is being supposed to be achieved through the learning outcomes. So if you need to, obviously through going through more of the readers, you will be able to get the better understanding of all these theories and processes. So just let me, yeah. So, so just let me kind of, yeah. So hold on. Yeah, as you can see, I just want to kind of go through the module specification again. As you can see, what is needed is for you to kind of understand to ensure that you have the knowledge about the learning outcomes, right? So indicative contents are here, obviously, which means these are the things which would come under the learning outcome. So basic understanding is for you to be able to having the knowledge of this particular learning outcome. So the first one is to understand the significance of strategic management and decision making to the performance management of a business organization. So like to apply academic theories, external organization factors and things of that sort. So if you look here, PESTLE, 5 forces, core competency, evaluations, these are the things that we followed, I think, during this week and last week, I think. And certain section I've completed before as well. And then you need to understand the key financial theories. This, of course, we have been doing for some time, where we are supposed to know the financial theories and how the strategic implementation techniques are used using balanced scorecard. We did balanced scorecard. And as you can see, we spoke about portfolio management tools and the strategic kind of like implementation tools we covered. So all these key financial theories were covered. Then we are supposed to know, you should be able to apply stakeholder analysis and corporate valuation techniques. So basically now talking about culture, significance of stakeholder analysis. So today we spoke a little bit about the stakeholder analysis, right? So however, and with that, we need to have apply stakeholder analysis, and also have business expansion for you all to understand about business expansion. If you see here, the concept of EVA, MVA, SVA, and corporate valuations like asset values. dividend valuation, all these valuation methods we covered particular week. So with all these things, is what is required. So you just need to have a basic understanding of these things, and I hope you did understand what I explained. So if there's anything, you could also go through the books to understand the concept better. Then you're supposed to understand the role of culture. You do the stakeholder analysis, and know about mergers and acquisitions, about change management. Yeah, role of change management. These are things that we also covered today as well. And then the performance measurement system, which involves financial analysis techniques and the practical business techniques of things of that sort. So as you can see, it talks about payback, discounted payback, NPV, IRR, so risk appraisal, then about the sources of finance. We spoke about different sources of finance, and we did like ratio analysis, one whole day about ratio analysis, different ratios and how we calculate those ratios. These are sections that we covered. So yes, so with that, we have covered all 5 sections which are under the learning outcome. So you're supposed to know all these. However, obviously, because we only have 10 weeks, I'm unable to like comprehensively comprehensively cover all these sections. I've tried my best to complete as much as possible, where I've tried at least to give you a certain understanding of the concept, so that you will have a particular understanding of what it is. And based on that, you could research if there's any need for you to understand, try and do something related to it. So also, as you know, there are specific indicative readings. I hope you've kind of read on it. Even if not, if while you're studying, if you feel like you could go through these textbooks, because whatever that is taught, if you go through the textbook, you will get a better understanding about the concepts. And through obviously journals and websites, as you can see, there's so many sources which were given by OTHM, and you should be able to kind of like cover in your assessments if you have show that you have an understanding of all these sections. Through that, you should be able to manage. So you should ensure that you know like you can cover all this, like you have an understanding of all these learning outcomes which are explained here. So these are, as you can see, these are the learning. Oh, sorry, what happened? Sorry, I just yeah, where are we now? Okay, so as you can see, these are the learning outcomes. So what you, oops, it's a different module. Sorry, guys. So these are the learning outcomes. So you have 5 learning outcomes. You have to ensure that you know all these, that you have covered all these learning outcomes, and those areas will be checked as well. Okay, guys, I know it has been quite a nice experience to try to kind of help explain the areas in this particular module. I know it was not an interactive kind of lecture, so it was obviously like a one-sided kind of lecture. So I really don't know whether I'll have understood whatever was in this particular module, and if whether there is some kind of section that you feel that more explanation is needed. So I just hope you do. If there's any need for explanation, that's why just go through the recordings again, and also try and see whether you can go through the related readings. If there's any section where you don't understand, because it's very important that you know what is in the learning outcomes, that you are able to, whatever is in the learning outcomes are kind of like, you know what the areas are applied. So I just hope you did have a good time. And thank you everyone for listening to me. There were periods in which I was also not very well, and I'm very sorry if the lectures were not clear during that time. But however, because of our the constraints of time, obviously I had to complete the recordings to ensure that you get get the understanding of that particular lesson. So I just hope all of you did understand what I explained during this 10-week. It has been quite a nice journey for me, trying to explain things to you all. And thank you, everyone. I just hope you all do your assessment well as well. See you guys. Thank you so much for listening to me. I know it had not been very easy listening for so long. Thank you guys for listening to all these recordings. I hope you do well in your assessment. See you. Bye.